alle ore 7:35 di questa mattina, il vescovo di Roma Francesco è tornato alla casa del Padre.
This morning, the news broke that Pope Francis has passed away. And many people are sharing their best thoughts of this Pope and wondering who the next Pope is going to be. And we do have some information on that. Betting markets are lighting up, and there are many organizations writing about what they think will be happening. Now, my friends, when people of power, when anybody passes, we tend to remember only their best. And I think it is honorable and admirable that we do this. But I do believe that for global and world leaders, we must assess how we lionize these individuals and make sure we do not forget any and all criticisms we may have had for these individuals. Now, I'm not trying to single anybody out or pick on anybody. When John McCain died, I said very much the same thing. It's a man who served his country and believed he was doing right, despite the fact that basically every quadrant in the political compass hated this man. I understand that. And I certainly am not a big fan of John McCain. But when he passed, I understood we don't celebrate death. And with the passing of Pope Francis, it's truly sad. There are many sharing a video showing him riding through Rome instead of going to the hospital, despite the fact that he was gravely ill. And so it is tremendously respectable. But there are some things we should bring up as to where the church is going. And as much as many people may say it's inappropriate or, Tim, you're wrong, the first thing I'll say is, I mean no disrespect to Catholics. In fact, I find Catholics to be very based. I just fear your institution is moving in a dangerous direction. Right now, one of the frontrunners previously was and is now dropping off to second place, but still the highest volume in the betting markets is an individual they believe that may be Pope who is praised by LGBT organizations. People have called on him or praised him for his criticism of the church's words against same-sex couples, LGBTQIA, etc. And as, of course, we know, Catholic Charities has long been accused of effectively funding these migrant caravans. So I say this to my Catholic friends. Well, I certainly see many of them posting nothing but respect for Pope Francis, and I understand and I respect that. I am not a Catholic, and I think we must address our concerns about where the institution is going and if it will actually serve the interests of the everyday Catholic. Now, again, I'm not Catholic, so far be it for me to tell you. What I will say is, as an American, I have serious concerns over the influence of the church in this country. And it is funny because if you go back 10 to 15 years, you've got the woke and the left saying this. But as of today, my concern is largely due to mass migration and wokeness. And it appears that the interests of the church are not in alignment with what the American people want. And the influence from the Catholic Church at the highest level that's detrimental. Pope Francis said Trump wasn't a Christian, essentially, because of Trump's efforts to secure our borders. And there's a lot more than that. Now, again, I'm not here to drag anybody after they pass. I'm here to just point out where we are going in the future and why it is important that we stay vigilant. The story from CNN. Pope Francis, voice of the poor who transformed the Catholic Church, dies on Easter Monday. They say the Pope passed away this morning, the morning of the holiest day in the Christian calendar, when the world's 1.3 billion Catholics celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Despite his poor health, Francis was seen a number of times in public at the Vatican during Holy Week, culminating in an Easter Sunday appearance where he delighted crowds at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The Pope's death was announced with deep sorrow by Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Vatican Camerlengo. Again, I forgive me because I'm not Catholic, so I may get these pronunciations wrong. Who said Francis died at 7:35 a.m. local time. That was 1:35 in the morning for those on Eastern time. Until the new Pope is chosen, Farrell acts as the head of the Vatican. With immense gratitude for his examples as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite merciful love of the triune God. Francis suffered a severe health crisis earlier this year and was hospitalized for 5 weeks with double pneumonia. His doctor said later that the Pope was so critically ill, the staff considered stopping his treatment so he could die. But the Pope recovered from the worst illness and was discharged last month and was convalescing at his residence in Casa Santa Marta at the Vatican. The Vatican said as recently as last week that his health was improving. Vance said on X Monday that he was happy to have seen the Pope, though he was obviously very ill. My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. And we have this post from Ryan Rassens, and he says, "This is how I will remember the Holy Father. One man standing alone in St. Peter's Square praying for a world in crisis." And I respect it. I do. I want to make sure that you guys understand my deep respect for our leaders, and the criticism comes with respect for you, because I know that I will be semi-critical of Francis, not completely, just a little bit. But I do this because I am concerned about this country and the people who live within it. I have many friends who are Catholic, and I asked them about how they felt about Pope Francis, and the responses I often get were relatively mixed. People were not particularly happy with how he handled things. We have this video. 11 months ago, Pope Francis clarifies his stance on blessing same-sex couples. So let's just hear it straight from the man himself.
To allow Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. That's a big change. Why?
No, what I allowed was not to bless the union. That cannot be done because that is not the sacrament. I cannot. The Lord made it that way. But to bless each person, yes. The blessing is for everyone. For everyone. To bless a homosexual type union, however, goes against the given right, against the law of the Church. But to bless each person, why not? The blessing is for all. Some people were scandalized by this, but why? Everyone. Everyone.
He asked why. ¿Por qué no? Why not? Again, I won't speak for you guys. I can only relay what was said to me when I asked about this. The Pope has effectively blessed same-sex unions. Effectively. He said that this is, no, it's the individuals. Everybody is welcome to these blessings. And what I was told is it's true. Every person can be forgiven. Every person can has a place in the church. But what was conveyed to me is that it was a tacit way to it opens the door to the expansion of the LGBTQ issue, namely that the first step the church is making to accept and bless these woke causes or these very anti-Christian causes is just this. That's why it was scandalized. To say that it was as simple as he's blessing same-sex marriages overlooks the actual concern that people have with what they refer to as the slippery slope. We also have this from CNN Politics. The Pope suggested Trump is not a Christian. He made a statement. He says if he calls for the deportation of undocumented immigrants and pledges to build a wall, that Trump is not a Christian. It's rather shocking. He says, a person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be, and not building bridges is not Christian. This is not the gospel. Trump immediately fired back, calling Francis' comments disgraceful. No leader, especially a religious leader, should have the right to question another man's religion or faith, he said in a statement. Trump added the government in Mexico, where Francis spent the past 5 days, has made many disparaging remarks about me to the Pope. If and when the Vatican is attacked by ISIS, which, as everyone knows, ISIS's, what a word, ultimate trophy, I can promise you the Pope would have only wished and prayed that Donald Trump would have been president. And as many people have pointed out, the Vatican is surrounded by walls because there are many people who seek to do it harm. So I say this not to disparage this man. That is not my intention, but just to point out the interests of the United States and the American people are at odds to a great degree with who this Pope was and what he brought to the Vatican. On Fox News this morning, they mentioned that he opened up the Vatican. It used to be largely Italian. Not anymore. Now it's multicultural. And with this multiculturalism, the legacy of Pope Francis and his multicultural values will persist in this church. Mario Nawfalez, the tweet, Who's next? Top 5 contenders to succeed Pope Francis. And we have Louis Tagle, Pietro Parolin, Jean-Marc Aveline, William Icke, and Malcolm Ranjith of Sri Lanka. Italy, France, Netherlands, and Sri Lanka. When we go to Polymarket, as of right now, Pietro Parolin is currently the front runner with 38%. Now, for a moment, Luis Antonio Tagle was the front runner. And as we can see, his volume, the trade volume, is $180,000. Pietro Parolin took the top spot just recently with $33,000 in volume. Tagle was considered largely to be the choice. Now, we don't know for sure. He's in second place. But the concern now, the next pope is going to be much more woke. Let's take a look. So we have this from New Ways Ministry. They say, this is by Robert Schein, managing editor. Church must abandon harmful approaches to lesbian and gay people. If you haven't already done so, please answer. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not part of the story. The Philippines' top prelate decried the clergy's harmful treatment of lesbian and gay people during a recent address, in London, saying modern science and social attitudes must be integrated into the church's pastoral efforts. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of Manila spoke about mercy to 8,000 young Catholics at the Flame 2 Youth Congress in Wembley Arena, London, noting the problematic treatment of marginalized communities in the past by representatives of the church. Tagle said the church had to learn lessons from the changing social attitudes and greater understanding of psychology and recognize the wounds its judgmental approach has caused in the past. Speaking afterwards, he said, it was clear that the tone taken towards gay people, divorcees who remained against Catholic teaching, and unmarried mothers had left many feeling branded and socially ostracized. Now, of course, my friends, I understand his point. And I believe in the bigger picture, the concern is you do not want to drive people away from the church. And as social order changes and you get more and more LGBTQIA people, woke people, divorced people, single mothers, well, my friends, if you travel back far enough in time, you'd find that these were a minority. Single mothers were rare. There was no LGBTQ movement, though people were gay and lesbian. They existed. It was largely considered to be socially unacceptable. So if you wanted to be part of the church, these things did not play a role. Divorce has been skyrocketing. Now we look, I'll put it this way, my friends. Ben & Jerry's and Dove soap. I know, Tim, what are you talking about? Both owned by Unilever. Ben & Jerry's is delicious. It's this amazing ice cream. I mean, the brand is relatively communist, but I digress. It'll make you fat. The problem is Unilever also owns Dove soap, which uses these beautiful models that women want to be. So what happened? Not that I think it's necessarily intentionally coordinated, but Dove launched the Real Beauty campaign. It's okay to be fat. Be fat and be proud. Why? Because the company had a lot of fat customers, and they knew, and they were concerned that people aren't going to buy their ice cream if it's going to make them fat, and then they're going to be shamed for being fat. So we got to tell them it's good to be fat. That way they buy the ice cream and our soap. That's what I feel with the Catholic Church right here. Luis Tagle is basically saying, you are sinners, but we need sinners in the church if we're going to keep this up. So as social attitudes change and sin wins, the church says it's fine as long as you keep coming. Now, again, I'll tell you, my friends, I'm not Catholic, so far be it for me to tell you what to do. But as an American, I see an institution advocating for sending illegal immigrants into our country, disrupting our economy, damaging our way of life and our moral tradition. And that's where we're currently at. You've got this over from the Catholic Charities USA. And they shall know us by our love, where they go on to basically say, yo, legit, we are giving money and aid and support to migrants. Now, they mention it's only a small percentage, but still, one of the principal actors that facilitates the migrant caravans is Catholic Charities. Now, I'm not going to pretend that Catholic Charities is the church or anything like that. It is an organization purporting to be of Catholics, though they have people of all different denominations and faiths, and they help everybody, but they are using that brand. Catholicism in this country has started to represent woke values. Now, I said this before. I said on X, Catholics are the superior Christians. And I did it because we were in the studio and we were talking about, I know, I'm triggering everybody, but like, hear me out. We were talking about birth rates, Catholics 2.3, other factions like 1.8. We were talking about divorce rates among Catholics are in like the single digits. Everybody else like 50-50. And so I said, wow, what are they doing right? I mean, why are they getting it better than everybody else? And then I jokingly said, should I tweet that? Catholics are the superior Christians. And Mary Morgan said yes, because she's Catholic. Phil laughed and said yes, because I think he just likes the chaos. Ha! And so I tweeted it. And I got a ton of retweets. All the Catholics were happy and the Protestants were not, and whatever. I'm not Christian enough to know, honestly, the difference or to actually tell people what they should and should not believe or who's better or who's worse. What I can say, however, is people purporting to be Christian have done a lot to drag this country down. There's a church, there's several actually, not too far away from where we are here in West Virginia, and they've got Progress Pride flags, and they have transgender services. And some people said it's like Episcopal, they do this. And there's other churches too that are doing this. What we are seeing is the wokeification of Christianity. And I think it's because, like I mentioned, there's concern that church attendance will go down. So they say, we've got to tell everyone they can come. So they change their stances on things. And they welcome the sinners into their fold and they praise the sin. I don't think that we can function this way. Our institutions and moral traditions are being eroded. Pope Francis fought against Donald Trump, insulted him, and accused him of not even being Christian. Maybe he's right. I don't know. But my friends, I mean this again, not to disparage a pope. For me, it's political, not religious. I don't approach this with the intent to offend anybody, but if you're offended, well then, I'm sorry, so be it. This powerful international institution has this cultural enforcement ability, to a limited degree, of course, over 1.3 billion people. I know not every Catholic follows the doctrine of the church and takes everything they say as dogmatic law, but it is a powerful force in this world, and it has been saying for some time that woke is okay. Not full-throated, but close. It has helped and advocated for illegal immigration into our country, which seeks to destroy it. I don't know the church wants to see the U.S. in flames, figuratively, but mass unchecked migration brings murderers, rapists, thieves, drug dealers, and it's disruptive to our economy, even when they're very fine people, right? Some of them are fine people, right? It's still disruptive to our economy and destructive to this country. It creates a lopsided electoral system. It's damaging to the institutions that our founding fathers sought to create, and it is unacceptable. Perhaps people will say, Tim, it's inappropriate for you to say this stuff now. Well, so be it. But know this, my friends. Right now, the markets are suggesting, and the news is suggesting, it is going to become more woke. So we'll see. I'm interested to hear what the Catholics have to say. I know that many of the more prominent Catholics are lionizing Pope Francis, and I respect it. I mean that, I really do. I don't rejoice in anyone's death, even the worst of the worst. You all know that. But I'm curious what all of you think, because I know that some of my friends who are Catholic have said they're not a fan of Pope Francis. But as they've been saying on Fox News, Pope Francis opened the door to this new multicultural way of thinking by changing the institution from the inside. And now we can expect to see the views that he held will persist. So again, we'll see. I'm going to leave it there, my friends. Smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. We got more segments coming up for you throughout the day, and we will see you all in a little bit.